We're on the road today with Ron Morris. Ron, how are you?
Nice to be here.
Thank you for coming. Ron is our mortgage lender with the mortgage firm. Ron, tell everybody how we met.
Actually, kind of a funny story. I had a buyer that ended up with you were both sides, the listing and the buyer side. Transaction went extremely smooth. You were somewhat impressed, I guess impressed enough to give me the time of day.
Right.
And I've been bugging them for business ever since, and that was 5, 6, 7 years ago.
I think it was about 7 years ago. Yeah, it was a house down in Tarpon.
And I like to say you've been stuck with me ever since.
We've been stuck with Ron ever since, and Michelle really works well with Ron. He does a great job for everything that we do. So Ron, take us from contract to close.
Actually, once we get a contract, once you or Michelle email me that contract and they're under contract, basically I pick up the ball and roll with it from there. Now, in the perfect world, I've already had them pre-approved. That's the perfect world, rarely happens. But that aside, I at least have talked with them and had them pre-approved. So I know their credit's okay, their income's probably okay. Whether I've seen documentation at that point or not, I don't know. But at that point, if I have it, I'm getting all that information in. So I'm verifying debt ratio, running a credit if I haven't already. Typically I have, but not necessarily, kind of depends. But once I get all that information in, everything's electronic these days, even with your contract, I think. So what I'll do at that point is email everything out to the buyer, click, click, click on the computer, they sign everything, get everything back. And that's really when the process starts. Kind of get everything over to our processor. We do the back stuff, the title search. We're verifying employment, where all that kind of stuff behind the scenes is going on. Once we get all that in, including the appraisal, I might add, at that point we get it all in a neat little bundle and send it to the underwriter. Underwriter is the one that kind of signs off on that deal. They review it. They want to make sure I've dotted my I's and crossed my T's. If I have, get it clear to close, and we can set up the closing and go on. Realistically, more times than not, there are a couple other items we need to do. So we need, again, dot the I's and cross the T's. It may take a couple extra days, not a big deal. This is all within a 30-day time frame, I might add, is easily. At that point, once you hear anybody say clear to close, it's time to start packing. It's time to start almost celebrating a little bit as well. Because at that point, we're moving that file over to the closing department. And then there's a 3-day time frame once we have it clear to close for the CD. What's the CD, you ask? Closing disclosure. Used to call that HUD in the old days. Now we call it a CD. And that basically gives that buyer the final precise numbers to the penny, I might add. At that point, I'm talking about doing a wire, having them get in touch with the title company, take care of the wire. 3 days later, we're sitting down at the title company signing papers. And then at that point, they get keys in their hand.
We like that part. Ron, we do a lot of open houses, we do a lot of advertising, we meet a lot of buyers. We get a call today, we can show one of our listings this afternoon. So we don't have a lot of time to talk to the people before we're meeting them. What I'd like for you to do is take us through the pre-approval and a pre-qualification.
Sure, and there's a really large difference between the two. So I'm kind of glad we're talking about it so everybody kind of understands that. I call it a pre-qual, pre-qualification. Basically is me on the phone or face-to-face, but usually over the phone, talking to the client about what's your credit score. And believe it or not, a lot of people are really in tune to that, whether it's with a credit card on a statement it has it, or they go to Credit Karma or whatever. So a lot of people know their credit score, which is helpful to me. So if they tell me their credit score, and again, I'm verbally talking with them on the phone going, what do you make? So if it's, hey, I make 50 grand a year, my credit score is 720 or whatever it may be, then I can run the numbers. And basically that's a pre-qualification. I've not documented anything. A pre-approval is when you start sending me your pay stubs, your tax returns. If I haven't run credit already, I've run credit. Huge difference between a pre-approval and a pre-qualification. Now, I would like to explain, there's a lot of people, and I know you and I have done this, seen this a lot. There tends not to be a sense of urgency for some buyers after I do the pre-qual. Okay, Jeff, go find a home for them. They're out looking at homes. I immediately will email them. I call it their homework list. It's a little list of documents that I need. And again, it's the tax returns, the pay stubs, so it's all that normal stuff.
You got to have this right away.
And most people don't see that urgency until, well, I'll do that when I find a house. That can bite you. So I really try to stress to them, get it to me before you sign a contract. Some do, some don't. The issue can come up like this, and I'll give you a couple real quick examples with that. I've done a pre-qualification, they're out looking for a home, they're procrastinators, which happens. So I haven't seen anything yet. So now they're under contract. They start sending me things. And when maybe even if I run credit and I have all their bills, I have their income, but on their pay stub, there's a child support loan on there because it's auto deduct from there. But they don't think to tell me because they don't write a check every month. So it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And it's not on the credit report. Well, and I've seen child support bills or alimony, big bucks. So that could totally change how much somebody can qualify for. And I want to share one other example that just happened yesterday. I'm talking to the wife of a husband and wife. She told me that her husband had filed bankruptcy. It's a second marriage, not that that matters. And when I ran credit, it didn't show up on the credit report, which happens sometimes. There's another thing we do when you're under contract called Fraud Guard. It's going to come up, so we're going to know about it. Fortunately, she was very upfront with me and told me about it. When I ran credit, it's not there, and I needed that date. The date is really important. She thought it was 2 years, but maybe 3, and that's a big difference. So I had to have her track down that bankruptcy papers, and it had the date right on it, and we're able to go forward now. But if she didn't think to tell me this, I didn't see it on the credit report, it wasn't there. It could have really created a problem down the road. I can't stress enough, get me the documentation when I ask for it. Nobody wants surprises in this business, so we're trying to minimize that as much as possible. Now that's different than the final approval. Once we have everything in, including the appraisal, the whole 9 yards, then it goes to that underwriter and they approve the loan. So that's different, and they're going to approve it subject to, you having down payment funds or whatever the case may be. So there's a big difference between pre-qualification and pre-approval, and difference between pre-approval and approval. So in a nutshell, that's kind of it.
Ron, towards the end of the contract process, the appraiser has to go out and appraise the house. Talk about that for just
Absolutely, and I'd like to share this too. As the seller and or listing agent of that property, they're coming. The appraiser's coming out. Just a little heads up, a little tip, clean it up a little bit. I mean, it doesn't have to be that they're not out there to make sure there's not things on the walls or anything, but get to bed, make sure this thing's clean. You'd be surprised at what I see. I'm not saying that's going to affect value, but it could. So kind of clean up a little bit. The appraiser just wants to make sure that whatever that sale price is on that property, the home's worth it. In a nutshell, that's what the appraisal is all about.
Ron, thank you very much for coming out today and
Appreciate
talking
you
with
having me
us.
out here.
Oh, it was our pleasure. Ron's done so many mortgages for us with the buyer side when we have the sellers. It's been for seven years, I guess. It's been a long time. From the beginning to the end, he takes care of all of our business. If you need to get a hold of Ron, Michelle's got the screen, everything on the screen. Let's shoot this all over. Well, Ron, thank you very much for coming over and seeing us
Thanks
today.
for having me.
Ron, as we said, has been doing our mortgages forever. Give him a call, Ron at the mortgage firm. Ron, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.